Welcome to the Rev Up Your Metabolism Forum, brought to you by Mercy Medical Center Steps to Health program. So tonight's forum has a panel of experts who will all three bring to you their expertise in the area of metabolism. They will focus for 15 minutes on their particular area of expertise, and then we will have 45 minutes of Q&A. So in your packets, when you came in, you should see 2 or 3 pieces of blank paper. And if a question pops in your mind while the presenters are speaking or during the Q&A, go ahead and jot it down, and there'll be people kind of wandering around. You can give it to one of them, and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. If it's for a particular speaker, you can note that. Otherwise, the speakers will take it as it comes. There will also be a microphone being passed around. If you have a question that you'd prefer to stand up and ask in person, you're absolutely welcome to do that too, but you're welcome to write it down if you'd rather do that. So why don't we get our speakers up here. So we're going to start with Dr. Brady. He'll be our first speaker. Dr. Brady is a medical director for occupational health at Mercy Care. He splits his time between seeing injured workers and weight management clients. And his goal is to educate his clients, the community, as well as other physicians that obesity is a complex medical condition and that its treatment is worthy of the interest and attention of medical professionals. Welcome, Dr. Brady.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello. Thanks for coming out tonight. That's okay on the volume in the back? Too much? Perfect. So tonight we're going to talk about metabolism, and one of the important points that we're all going to harp on is the difference between having a weight loss seminar and having a metabolism seminar. So there's a reason why we named it that and a reason why we want to talk about that instead of just talking about this very simple equation that we use, that your weight is based on the ins and outs. If you ask your doctor what you should do to lose weight, usually you're asking him because he's already done all the real business and his hand's on the door and he's trying to leave, and you say, hey doc, what am I supposed to eat to lose weight? Right? And so the goal number one is he's trying to leave. But anyway, to answer that question, you always hear the same thing. They kind of say, well, just eat less and exercise more, right? Which is a true statement, but it's not a very useful statement because it's the advice that you'd get from anybody. A third grader could tell you that there's some balance on the ins and outs. So what we want to talk about today is why that simple advice, we do all know that, why that's so hard to make that work. And one of the problems with this equation is it assumes that we're a simple science experiment where you put some amount of energy in, you use some of it, what's left over has to get stored, as if we're some sort of engine that has some degree of efficiency or inefficiency, and those people are good at storing store, and if you eat too much, there's going to be fat, and if you're exactly balanced, you'll be the exact right weight. The problem with that thinking is it actually doesn't add up very well. It doesn't take into account the fact that we have a metabolism. We're not a machine. And what metabolism really means is we don't eat calories per se. We eat molecules, right? And the molecules get turned into other molecules. That's what metabolism is, a bunch of steps where you take one thing and turn it into something else. Even the things that we use for energy are actually little molecules. So the reason why it's not as simple and why we can't just manipulate our weight the way we want it to is we're always just thinking of this in and outs. And to some degree, it makes us under-eat when we're trying to lose weight. And what today is kind of about is what would be sort of the ideal way for good health, how to live, rather than just starving yourself and letting your weight rebound in 3 or 4 months when you're sick of starving yourself. To put this in context, I think if you're going to have an answer for how you want to maintain your weight or lose your weight or not gain weight if you're in the prevention mode, you need to answer 2 questions. And one of those is, where did this kind of obesity epidemic come from? You need to have an explanation for this that would make sense for what we're seeing. The other one would be is why is it so difficult to lose weight, or why is there so much rebound? So since I'm the doctor in the bunch, I'm going to talk about kind of the statistics, and I'm going to talk about the physiology that's in the body that makes it so difficult to lose weight. So the familiar explanations for how we've gotten to be the way that we are, one would be that, you know, Americans drive too much. We don't walk anymore, and there's been a real increase in that over time. So if you just take different countries and how much people there walk versus drive, you'll find that they're indirectly proportionate to how obese they are. So the people who walk the most have the least obesity. The people who walk the least have the most obesity. And that holds true across several countries. So cars and lack of walking might be part of it. Just within the United States, if you do a survey of people asking how many days of the week do you get the recommended dose of exercise, and then you go back and correlate to those states and their obesity rates, you'll see something that looks like a very definite trend. Over here on the right, you have Colorado and Vermont and Utah and Hawaii, where people are outside doing things. They're the most active people, and their obesity rates are the least. On the bottom axis is obesity actually going up over time. So at the bottom in the South, where people don't have an opportunity to be or don't have the culture where they are as active as they might be in the mountain states, that's where the obesity is highest. So there's a definite correlation between driving, between exercise. So far this thing is adding up into the simple equation, right, that it's based on activities and ins and outs. The food is changing, right? The food in the 1970s is not the same as the food that we have now. Now this is happening actually worldwide. This comes from an unrelated place in a study about people changing their natural traditional diet based on fish and fatty things to a more westernized diet. And what this is showing is over time, and this is going from the 50s to the 80s, I'll show you America in a minute, and I could show you this for almost every country on the planet. Over time, protein stays roughly the same as a percent of the diet, and over time, most of us have decreased our fat. That's the yellow line on top. Saturated fat is the green line, and most of us have increased our carbohydrates. So that gives rise to the carbohydrate hypothesis, which is the main thing that has switched in our diet from the 70s to now, is there's a lot more carbohydrates around. Carbohydrates are easy to turn into fat cells, and so the reason we're all overweight is due to excess carbohydrates. This is the way it looks in the United States. So this is just by percents. The blue line is the percent obesity going from 1974 to 2000. The yellow line on the left side there is calories from fat going down at the same time as our obesity rates are going up. This line on the other side is the calorie from carbs going up as our obesity rates are going up. So as we got advice to read it, this is how the story goes. I'm going to give you some caveats to this story in a minute. As we reduced fat, when they discovered that fat was bad for us and was making us fat, we did exactly what they asked us to do in the 80s. Americans decreased their fat. Carbs went up because you do have to fill it in with something, right? That low-fat Snackwell cookie thing has got to be made of something. Well, the thing it's made of is carbs. And that's caused the obesity epidemic. That's how the argument goes. There's some people who latch onto fructose specifically. So sugar is a kind of carbohydrate, right? Pasta is a chain of sugars. Or there's free sugars like fructose. And certainly high fructose corn syrup basically didn't exist. And it was invented a little bit earlier, but it got into our food supply in the 70s. And as you see, this is our amount of just drinking sodas and other thing over time. And you see the obesity rate is going exactly lockstep. This concept of free fructose isn't important, but what they're trying to show is a lot of free fructose molecules that aren't bound up in fruit. So this is to tell the difference that it's not just fructose itself. It will be fructose without the fiber. So this isn't eating an orange. This is drinking orange juice. And it correlates, again, with the obesity rates. We've had changing advice on what we're supposed to eat in the first place. There are many researchers at the conferences that I go to that focus on, and I don't know if that's as blurry for you guys as it is for me. Maybe, is it clear in your handouts? Or do we need to focus? It's just too small. You're familiar with the food pyramid, though, right? That we're going to put all the breads and pastas and thing at the base of the pyramid, and we're supposed to have 79 servings a day of that. A lot of people think that that contributed significantly to the obesity epidemic by putting fats at the bottom and fats at the top is something you're supposed to have very little of, and carbs at the bottom is supposed to be the base of your diet. It correlates very well in time with when we started getting overweight. This is another way to look at it, and all of those slides that I showed you before, in particular these kinds of things, fat goes down, obesity goes up, carbs go up, obesity goes up. That's the theme, right? These are all in percents. When you look at the numbers by grams, is what I did here. This is NHANES, which is the largest sort of good survey of what people are eating every year. Every couple of years they do it. Between 1970 and 2005, Americans started eating 280, I think, on average, 280 more calories between those two time frames. And what you'll see, though, when you look at it in grams, is that we're eating 100 and something grams of protein then, and we're eating 100 and something grams of protein now. We're eating 50 something grams of fat, 50 something grams of fat. The only thing that's changed is we're eating a lot more carbs than we used to. 230 versus something like 280. If you take the 50 excess grams of carbs and multiply by 4, there's your 200 calories. So we aren't eating more of everything. We're only eating more of carbs. The interesting point here is we never stopped eating fat. It just got diluted out. As we started eating more carbs, if you do it by percents, we're eating less fat. But gram for gram, we're eating all the fat we ever did. We're eating all the protein we ever did. We just added the carbohydrates. So the question becomes, if we're eating the same amount of fat, do Americans follow dietary advice at all? And the answer is probably not. So it really doesn't matter that they changed from the 4 square meal or the 3 square meals to the pyramid to the whatever, because we're not doing what they say anyway. That being said, the plate, the reason we've switched to the plate, and we're going to talk about, Terry's going to talk about that in some detail in a little bit, why we've switched to that is because they are now following what we do know about the science, that there's a better balance than either the old square meal idea or the pyramids. And most people think that they're getting darn close to saying something reasonable with these recommendations, that the plate would actually work if we could follow it. So I put this up here just to sort of show how complicated it is, right? I mean, we're not going to go through this, but if weight is based on just the number of calories that we eat, one of the interesting facts about this is when you survey people, the skinny people eat this much, the medium people eat this much, and the large people eat. American adults, on average, there's no difference between what skinny people report eating and what overweight people report eating. And a lot of people think that's because overweight people are going to underestimate their calories even more. But there's another way to look at this, which is if you think of somebody gaining 100 pounds in 10 years. You're 20 years old and you weigh 200 pounds. And by the end of that decade, you're going to weigh 300 pounds. Sorry, I didn't put this on a slide. I'll probably get it wrong because it's not on a slide. But let's just think about what does it take to gain 10 pounds a year. Well, there's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, okay? So if you take 350 is almost, 3,500 is about the same as 350, right? So we can basically divide by 10. So to gain a pound in a year, that's eating 10 excess calories a day, just 10 excess calories. So to gain 10 pounds in a year, you're only eating 100 excess calories a day. So two things based on that. A, it's not a lot. B, it's more than we're actually self-reporting that we're eating more. So we're more than gaining 10 pounds a year based on just the numbers that we report ourselves. And so you start to say, those numbers don't add up. If skinny people and heavy people eat exactly the same, and if it only takes 100 extra calories a day to gain 10 pounds in a year, why isn't everybody overweight? Well, one thing is everybody is, but the other thing is you're not taking into account that this stuff is regulated, right? The body can adapt itself to how much food that we give it. Some people are good at that adaptation. They live in America just like the other people, and they're not having a problem with weight. So you have to start thinking about weight as a problem with body weight regulation rather than an overeating problem. If it only takes 100 excess calories, how would you even find them? I mean, how would you schedule your meals so that you're going to just have 1/2 of something every day to weigh a little less at the end of the year? It's not possible. It's not possible that the skinny people are that good at counting their calories either. The difference is between being 100 pounds overweight and being skinny is, you know, just this tiny little sliver of calories. So we need to stop thinking about it as an overeating problem. which leads us to this. So yeah, sorry to skip back and forth. Which is, these are the hormones that regulate it in all of us. I meant to change these before we talked about anorexic, that we can relate to, right? That is the eat less signal, and orexigenic is the eat more signal, okay? So eat more, eat less. These are the hormones in our body that control how much we want to eat every day. And it looks like this on the inside, okay? Some of these signals, oh, sorry to make you turn pages because I don't want to go back and forth. Some of these signals, you'll notice there's only 2 get big signals. That's because the drug companies have no interest in finding get big signals. So they're on a big search to find these guys, and they're not so. But it just shows you how willy-nilly they are, because of course you could find the get big signal and make something that blocks it. But anyway, they haven't been going that direction. They're trying to find all of these. When you eat, there's a lot of crosstalk in the body. This is a rough diagram of some of those hormones that I showed up above. But the food comes down. Ghrelin will tell the body will tell the brain when your stomach is empty that you need to eat more. Insulin will go handle your sugar, but then when there's too much, it'll say, no, we've had a meal, you should stop eating. These other ones feed back directly on the stomach to give it a full feeling, which we then transfer onto the stomach. There's crosstalk every time you eat. Every time you don't eat, these things go up and down all during the day. Here are just the brain signals that do the same thing. So all those signals get interpreted, get sent up to the brain, and it looks something like this. And this is obviously a cartoonish simplification of a couple of neurons in the brain regulating your hunger, right? But it shows you where some of these signals go back and forth and actually interact on each other in a really complex web of interactions. So when somebody tells you, well, you need to eat less, I'm not positive that it's actually under your control, because all of this is happening. So what happens when we diet, right? That's the interesting question is, so I go on a crash diet and I lose my 40 pounds and I always gain it back. Why does that seem to be nearly universal? Why almost every diet study you look at is there this big phase of we did this in the intervention and then the weight came back over the next year or two? Because it's a physiologic process. We're built to do this. So why do I bring up this really depressing fact? Because if it's metabolism, well, A, it's really important that we don't think we have an eating problem when we don't have an eating problem, right? If we think we overeat, and every time we indulge a little bit and eat 300-400 extra calories and think that skinny people don't do that, well, then we're just misinformed, right? So we're going to be working on the wrong thing. But the other idea is if it's not the quantity, and there's some quantity involved because you can systematically starve people, but in order to be healthy, it's got to be what you eat. We have to figure out how to have these hormones be happy. So what we're talking about tonight is 2 things. Both on the ins and on the outs, that equation is totally manipulable by you. If you think about it, if somebody wants to do aerobic exercise and lift weights and eat tons of protein and build up their muscles, well, they're going to get to have 3,000 calories a day and a super active lifestyle, right? If somebody wants to starve themselves down to 1,000 calories, well, guess what's going to happen? Our body's going to shut you down little by little by little. And these are all just about the hunger. There's actually a whole other set of pathways about what happens in individual cells just as the basic metabolism. So to go a little further into that, we've brought a device that's set up to measure basic metabolic rate, which we call RMR. And are you going to talk about the equation? Because I didn't yet.
No, I'm not going to talk about the equation.
So the only thing that I want to tell you about this is the outside of the equation. So we have, this is here. Well, that's helpful.
I'm not going to present that.
You're not ready yet. I'm sorry. I switched my slides last minute. I didn't know which ones we got. The equation that in equals out, well, the outside has a little bit of complexity. The outside, and Daisy, you do have this later because you talk about the 4 components of how we spend our energy. So there's our resting metabolism. There is the amount of energy it takes just to digest our food. Then there's our exercise, and then there's kind of the rest of our movements, all this gesticulating and fidgeting that we do. So that's the out part of the equation. So when we look at this, these are 3 of those: resting metabolic rate, physical activity, and non-exercise activity thermogenesis, but this is just fidgeting, okay? RMR, PA, and fidgeting have been shown in people who diet to slow down. So just as you'd expect with these hormones when you diet, they're able to measure increased level of the hormones going up and down to compensate. They've also been able to measure this on the energy level on the individual cells. So I showed you in that other one that ghrelin is the thing that says we're hungry and we need to eat more. This has been studied, and they're able to find that hormone is higher in people who have been dieting. Same with, you see the right direction moves in leptin and PYY, which are supposed to tell us to stop eating. Well, when you've been dieting, they actually will rise up, they'll decrease so you don't stop eating. Your metabolic rate decreases. Physical activity, some of which is under your choice, some of which isn't, has also been shown to decrease. So if you look at the body's compensation to dieting, the authors in the study say that these hormones seem to work exactly like you'd think to sabotage your efforts. So my point in bringing that up, sorry, so I was one slide ahead of myself, is that knowing all that, we can understand why it's so hard. And knowing all that, we can plan for the decreases and be sure that we have our understanding of our metabolism so we get our exercise going when we need to. So with that, we're going to show you how a resting metabolic rate works.
Yeah, so we're going to do a live resting metabolic rate test here. Amanda and Riley, two of my coworkers at Mercy Fitness Center, are going to do this demonstration live. And why is this important? Well, as Dr. Brady said, some people who are skinny eat the same amount of calories as people who are large. And why is that?
Daisy, for instance.
Yeah, and that's because their resting metabolisms are different. And what this test will do is it will actually tell you what your resting metabolism is, so that you know how your body uses food, so that you know how many calories, if you go above a day, you can gain weight, and also so that you know what the healthy rate is that you should eat, so that you don't cause that starvation mode Dr. Brady was talking about and have your body kind of shut down. And so this test, Riley's going to wear a mask. It collects the oxygen that you breathe in. Oxygen is used in the metabolic process in converting those molecules into energy. And carbon dioxide is a byproduct. So it's measuring the oxygen you breathe in, the carbon dioxide you exhale, and it can tell then what your resting metabolic rate is. I'll explain a little bit at the end of my presentation kind of what the rules are before you do the resting metabolic rate test, but there is going to be noise throughout the test that you'll hear. So I already cleared it with Terry that she's okay that the noise is going to be happening, but you'll hear this noise back and forth. The test usually takes anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry. We'll turn it over here. We'll introduce Terry.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Brady. Next, we've got Terry Clark, one of our Mercy dietitians. She's an outpatient dietitian for Mercy Medical Center, and she also facilitates the Mercy Weight Loss Program and recently began working with Dr. Brady in his weight management clinic. Let's welcome Terry.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Well, tonight what I'm going to talk about really is about just a general overall healthy diet. I may go against a little bit of what Dr. Brady said, because I think at some points we do tend to eat too much, but I know there's a lot more involved, and there's a lot more studies out there that we're learning about these hormones and everything going on within the body. So it's really not always about the food, but I think a lot of it is about our choices. So I'm going to talk a lot about what a winning healthy diet is and some of our choices that we make and some of the better choices that we can make. So throughout our lifetimes, we tend to have a lot of different habits that we obtain, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good. And sometimes it's those bad habits, if you will, that we tend to hang on to, and they continue to, over time, they tend to continue and continue, and we have a hard time changing or cutting back. And then that's where we run into problems, and we know we shouldn't eat this. I know what to do, but I can't, I just don't do it. And I hear that a lot, and we have a really hard time making these changes so that we have a healthier diet. So when I said I'm going to go against Dr. Brady a little bit, it's because of this slide right here. You know, the myth is, why do we gain weight? Because I have a slow metabolism. Well, really, only about 5% of the population have an abnormal metabolism. 95% of the population have a normal metabolism. So it's not that we can really blame it on a slow metabolism. Basically, we do tend to eat more calories than what our bodies actually metabolize. So if we have a higher resting metabolic rate, we can eat the more calories and our body will be able to metabolize it. But if we have the lower resting metabolic rate, then our body's going to hang on to those calories and store them. And a lot of it has to do with our lifestyle, how much exercise we do, the types of foods that we eat as well. So basically, a winning diet plan would be to eat breakfast. And I hear so many times that people can't eat breakfast because they're not hungry, or I don't have time, or I eat breakfast and I'm still hungry. But really, eating breakfast, it just sets the stage for the rest of the day. It provides your body with some energy to get going so that you can get through the morning and you can get to thinking a little bit more clearly. So eating breakfast is really, if you're not a big breakfast eater, this might be an area where you might want to consider changing. It doesn't have to be anything big. You can keep it totally simple. Everything on this slide right here, you can make within 2 minutes. It doesn't take time at all. And you can eat it on the way to work, in the car. You can eat it at your desk at work if you have that type of a job where you can eat at work. You can eat it while you're getting ready. I know a lot of times we say that's kind of mindless eating. We want you to sit down. We want you to really focus on your food. But in the morning, sometimes I understand when you have little kids, you got to get them ready and you got to get to work on time. Breakfast can be a challenge. And so by just eating something simple, this is really going to start your day out right. Other people say that I can't eat breakfast, it makes me nauseous. A lot of times it's because you're not trained. You haven't trained your body to eat breakfast. So really there's no excuses here. It's just learning to eat what you can tolerate in the morning, and eventually your body will get used to that. And eventually you will start to enjoy that breakfast, and you'll actually realize that it does make you feel better. People who eat breakfast, they tend to snack less, they tend to make healthier choices, and they tend to have a lower body weight. So now we're just going to go through some of the different food, the macronutrients, and carbohydrates really get a bad rap. You know, as Dr. Brady said, you know, when we decreased the fat, our carbohydrates went up, and so did our weight. And carbohydrates, they do get a bad rap. You know, you hear, oh, I'm on a low carbohydrate diet, or I'm addicted to carbs, or I can't eat carbs. And if you take a look at the My Plate model here, 4 out of 5 of those food groups have carbohydrates in them. It also, carbohydrates play a huge source in our health, huge factor in our health. They're the main source of our energy, great fiber for digestion and weight control, and they also provide a lot of vitamins and minerals. So if you take the fruits and vegetables, for instance, you can see on this plate now, you remember the My Pyramid, or where the grains are on the bottom? Well, right now you have the fruits and vegetables as half of your plate. So half your plate should be fruits and vegetables. And I hear so many times, you know, you should be getting 5 to 9 a day. And I hear so many times people say, ooh, well, I get 1, maybe 2, you know, 3 on a good day. And really 5 to 9 is what we should be getting every day. It's not that difficult to do if you can go ahead and have 1 fruit or vegetable with a meal. There's 3 right there. You can even double up on a fruit or a vegetable. You know, at supper, maybe have a double vegetable. Breakfast, have a double fruit. And the good thing about it is the serving size is about 1/2 cup. So it's not that big. And if you actually measure out 1/2 cup, you'll notice that it really isn't that much. The grains. Now you can see the grains that your breads there. That's just 1/4 of the plate there. So the grains have really diminished, but it's still 6 to 11 servings. That's what it's always been, 6 to 11 servings. And now they're saying make half your grains whole. I think part of the problem is that we're still eating a lot of refined grains, and we're still eating a lot of snack crackers and donuts, and you know, we have pizza, and instead of having, you know, 1 slice, maybe 2 maximum, we're eating half the pizza or more. And so we are just eating a lot of carbohydrates in the form of grains. Whole grains, you know, we know what whole grains are, whole wheat bread. We know we're supposed to have whole wheat, but maybe you could get online and Google whole grains recipes and try something with quinoa. Try something with barley. Try something a little bit different. Those are all whole grains. Oats are whole grains. So it's not just about the bread. It's not just about whole wheat. Another good thing about that is we can now get whole wheat hamburger buns. We can get whole wheat hot dog buns. You know, you can get a lot of whole grains in the grocery store. Going out to eat, not so much. And you might overeat on some of the grains there. So that's where you might want to be careful if you're one that goes out to eat a lot. Maybe that's one of your habits that you need to take a look at and cut back a little bit, or start making better choices when you're going out to eat. So proteins are a great source of a winning diet. It's just a quarter of the plate again. And you can see over there all the functions that protein does in our body. It does a lot of functions. We tend to eat a lot of protein, especially in the evenings. If you like to exercise or even with weight maintenance, it's good to balance those proteins out over the course of the day. About 30 grams of protein per meal would be great for weight loss. It does help you stay fuller longer, and it also helps to preserve your lean muscle mass. So proteins are great to have in your diet. Now, I'm not talking about sausage and bacon and brats and luncheon meats and things like that. I'm talking more like skinless chicken and the lean beef and pork. Those are your good proteins there. But not only that, you can also get it in beans and legumes. Beans and legumes, again, that's in the vegetable category. And they're low in fat, they're high in fiber, and it's a great source of protein. So beans, you can add to salads, you can put them in soups, you can put them in casseroles. I like to mix my ground beef with black beans, and it just gives it that extra fiber, that lower fat, and it still adds the protein. So it works really well. And chicken, I like to put the white navy beans. So I like to just add those to some of my foods so I know that I'm getting that extra protein, that extra fiber. One thing about fiber that I wanted to mention on the previous slide is we should be getting about 25 grams of fiber per day. 25 plus, actually. 25 is on the low side. And most Americans get anywhere between 10 and 14 grams. You're going to get your fiber in your fruits and vegetables, and you're going to get them in your whole grains mostly. And so that's why it's important also that you're getting half your plate with fruits and vegetables and that you're eating some whole grains. Fiber helps in digestion, and it does help in weight control. I had a guy one time, he would tell me I'm just starving at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he would have 2 huge bowls of Rice Krispies every morning. I don't know why I'm so hungry. I have 2 big bowls of Rice Krispies. Well, I challenged him to try a high-fiber cereal and come back and let me know how he did. He came back the next week and he said, yep, I went out and I bought a high-fiber cereal and I'm not hungry anymore at 10 o'clock. So that fiber, it really does keep you fuller longer, and that really helps in weight control because then you're not going out and snacking on other food and tempted to eat other foods or overeat. Gone are the days of the low-fat diet, and now we have good fats, bad fats. Yes, we do call them bad fats. Healthy fats, or the good fats, are going to be your monounsaturated and your polyunsaturated fats. And those are fats that are basically liquid at room temperature. And I usually recommend the canola oil and the olive oil. Those are my 2 that I recommend the most. You can also get some good healthy fats, the omega-3 fats, through some of the foods you eat, like oily fish, such as salmon and mackerel, sardines, tuna. And you can get them through nuts. Walnuts would be a good source there. Avocados and also olives are good sources of omega-3s. So those are good foods to add into your diet. Your unhealthy fats, the saturated fats and the trans fats, and these are the bad fats, because what these fats do is they increase your risk of heart disease and some cancers. These are some of the fats you're going to find in a lot of processed foods. You're going to find these in high fatty meats as well, the marbling in the meats, a lot of processed foods. Saturated fats should be about 7% of your total fats, but the hydrogenated fats, or the trans fats, 0. They have no nutritional benefit in our bodies. And basically the hydrogenated fats are something that have been manufactured. These you're going to find in a lot of processed foods. And, you know, when I have my classes and I bring these products and we look through the ingredients looking for hydrogenated fats, you'd be surprised where you see them. And one of them that really surprised me is microwave popcorn. And even the healthy ones, it says, oh, healthy. And then you'll look in the, where they have the trans fats, and it'll say zero trans fats. But if you look in the ingredients, it says hydrogenated fats. If a product has less than 0.49 grams of trans fats, they don't have to list it as having a trans fat. So they can put on the label zero trans fats. So you always want to look in the ingredients for trans fat, for hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats. You're also going to find, there's another one that I was really surprised, was cake mixes. So when you're making a cake for your child for their birthday or whatever, they're getting some hydrogenated fats. Unless you're making it from scratch, but when you're buying the boxes, you're going to find them there. You'll also find them in macaroni and cheese, in peanut butter. So make sure you're taking a look at these labels and looking at the ingredients and looking for hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. It will have trans fats, even if the label says it doesn't. So those are your fats. A serving size is about a teaspoon. It's really not a lot. And with the monounsaturated, the polyunsaturated, you know, I always say go ahead and saute your vegetables or saute your meats, pan fry your meats in a little bit of olive oil or even canola oil. So people say, oh, I always use the Pam spray. Well, that's fine too. But having a little bit of healthy fats, they can have some heart health benefits as well. So that fits into a good, healthy diet. Snacking smart. A big question I get is, should I snack? How often should I snack? When do I snack? Well, really, it's up to you. But I think what a lot of people associate snacking with is the mindlessly snacking that we do a lot in the evening, where we might sit down and we're relaxing and we're watching TV and we bring the chips or the crackers or the peanuts over and we're sitting down and we're just mindlessly eating them because they're good and we're relaxing and we're just enjoying our time. But snacking smart can really benefit your diet if you were to add some really good beneficial foods there. This is an area where you can get in some more fruits and vegetables. This is also an area where in the afternoon where you have that crash and you're really tired and you're really hungry, where you can fuel your body with something healthy and so that it's a pick-you-up and it's also helping you get through the rest of the afternoon so that by the time you get home and you're getting ready to fix dinner, you're not starving where you're snacking mindlessly again while you're preparing dinner or ordering pizza or Chinese food. Snacking in the afternoon can be great for those of you who like to work out in the afternoon as well because it can fuel your body so by the time you get to your workout, you've got some of that energy to really have that endurance and to push it hard to have a great workout. I know I've been a couple times where I didn't snack and I'm hungry. And all I can think about during my workout is how hungry I am and how tired I am and all I want to do is go eat something. So having a good healthy snack, a sandwich, it could be a half a sandwich, it could be a Greek yogurt, it could be a Greek yogurt with some fruit or granola, can really kickstart your body so that you're ready for that workout and it can fuel your body. Nuts are another great snack. Nuts, though, are a great snack, and they will fill you up, but you got to be careful how much you eat, because people can get a little crazy on some nuts, and they are a high-calorie food source. What I tell people to do, it's really an ounce as a serving. What I tell people to do is put some in your hand and shake your hand off, and that's what you get. So it's not as much as you can fit in there, and that's what I'm eating. You shake it off, and that's your serving. And that's about right. That's a serving, and it's going to be close to 200 calories. Hydration will make you feel so much better. Our bodies are 60 to 70% water. And so when we hydrate it, we're replenishing it with those fluids that our body needs as we're expiring them throughout the day. You want to make sure that you're hydrating with water. And yes, this is water. 2 liters, 8 cups, 64 ounces. Aim for that much of water. I think a lot of times what we do is we replace some of these water requirements with other things such as pop and lattes and energy drinks. And now we're getting into, well, those sports drinks, and now we're getting into a lot of those energy drinks. They have a lot of caffeine in them, and so we do actually become addicted to them. I had somebody in my office today that said she just can't give up pop. I just can't do it, you know, and she's, you know, it really has no nutritional value whatsoever to have any kind of pop, whether it's regular pop or diet pop. Well, it's diet pop, and so it has no calories. It doesn't have any calories, but studies have shown, they go both ways. I think you're going to have studies that say, well, there's no calories, so you're not going to gain any weight on it. But then you have other studies that say, well, it sort of, it gives you the idea that you want to eat some more. And I guess my take on it is it does sort of coat the mouth with a sugary feel. And so when we do drink that water, it has no flavor, and we don't like it because it's tasteless. And then we don't want to drink the water because we want our pop. It just tastes so much better, or we need to put something in our water. So if you can cut back on the pop or cut back on these sugary drinks, I think you'll be doing your body a big help and replacing it with some of these water. And you can feel better. I can almost guarantee you that you will feel better and you will have more energy by drinking more water. Another thing with water is a lot of times when we think we're hungry, we're really just thirsty. And so it's important that we might have a glass of water first. I don't know if any of you guys are water drinkers out there, and I'm sure all of you are. But when you drink a glass of water and about 10, 15 minutes later, sometimes I'm feeling really, really full. It's like, geez, what did I eat? I know I had to eat something because I'm really full. But it was that water. That water took care of that hunger or that urge or that thinking that I need to eat something. So try it next time. Have a glass of water when you're thinking you're hungry. And see if that helps to curb that appetite. So eating a healthy diet, a lot of it it really is the habits that we've obtained over the course of our lifetime. And they're hard to change. They really are. But it's one step at a time. And I always tell people in my class, first you need to identify it. First you need to know what the problem is. And then you need to replace that with something that's healthier. And maybe it's not going to be the healthiest option the first time, but at least it's better than what you were doing before. Replacing that, you're not always going to be perfect and you're going to fall off, but you can't beat yourself up over it. And like Dr. Brady said, you know, when you starve yourself of these foods, well, what we aim to do, we can do that for so long. Some people are good at it. They can do it for 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks. Some people can only do it for 3 days or a week. I mean, we all have our tipping point. You know, I think we tend to beat ourselves. Oh, I failed. I'm no good. I'm never going to get it. I'm always going to be like this. I'm never going to change. But habits are hard to break. And you are going to fall off every now and then. But you just get right back on. Just get right back on. Tell yourself, I can do it. I know I can do it. This is going to work. And eventually, those habits, those bad habits that you've had, they turn into better habits. And your healthy eating habits are so much better than they were 3 months ago, 6 months ago. And they're going to be so much better a year from now. Thank you. Oh, that's the train of thought there.
Thank you, Terry. All right, we've got one last speaker before the Q&A. I'm going to take my notes. No problem. Daisy Waldron is next. She is a health and fitness specialist at Mercy Fitness Center, and she's been with Mercy in fitness and wellness for 15 years. Help me welcome Daisy.
Okay, well, it's nice to see you tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces, and so I know some of you are exercising right now. Some of you may not be exercising right now. Hopefully after what you hear today, either you are going to begin some type of exercise, or you're currently exercising and you might change how you're exercising if your goal is to increase your metabolism. So I'm going to be talking about what affects your metabolism related to physical activity. So how different types of physical activity affect your metabolic rate. And I have broken them down into 3 different categories, and I'll give you tips in each different category. The first category is your activities of daily living. And this would be like if I was brushing my teeth, talking on the phone, that sort of thing. Now, if I am sitting at my desk or at home and I'm talking on the phone, if I just make one little change, if I stand up and talk on the phone, I'm going to burn 2 times as many calories as if I was sitting down. If I make another little change and I decide to walk around when I'm talking on the phone, I'm going to burn 3 times as many calories as if I was sitting down. That's one little simple thing you can do during the day. If we're looking at, Dr. Brady talks about fidgeting, and that's the next category I'm going to look at. Now, fidgeting, when I talk about fidgeting, I don't mean you're tapping your toe underneath the desk there, or you're flipping that pencil on the desk. I mean like putzing, right? Putzing around the house, that person who just can't sit down, they have to be messing around in the garage, they have to be washing the dishes, they have to be cleaning the house, they cannot sit down. That's fidgeting. And there was a study done with both men and women, and over an 8-week period of time, they overfed these men and women 1,000 calories a day. So 1,000 calories a day more than they eat. I would not have volunteered for that test. I'm just letting you know right now. So after that 8-week period of time, what they found was that the people that they classified as fidgeters, they measured how much movement they were doing during the day. The fidgeters gained 3 pounds over that 8-week period of time. The non-fidgeters gained 16 pounds over that 8-week period of time. So what I'm talking about is become a fidgeter. All right? Now, how are you going to do that? Put on your handy little pedometer. I wore mine tonight. I started at 5 o'clock. I put 1,111 steps on in an hour and 50 minutes. Okay? Now, if at the end of my day, that's the whole number of steps I've had for my whole day, tomorrow I'm going to set a goal to get 500 more steps. And so what you'll do is you'll kind of monitor your pedometer throughout the day, and if you know you're kind of far off on your goal for the day, you're going to start to move more. You're going to try to figure out a way during the day to move more. So that's your second goal. Now the third aspect we're going to talk about is exercise. And I've broken it down, this category, into 3 different categories. I'm going to come up with 3 different ways you can increase your metabolism by the type of exercise you do, by the intensity of exercise that you do, and by what you eat after you exercise. Okay? So here we're going to go. There's 2 types of exercise I'm going to talk about. The first is strength training. After the age of 30, we start losing muscle. It's a natural process of aging. At a rate of 3 to 8% per decade, you're losing muscle. At the age of 50, it increases to about 5 to 10% per decade at a rate of about 1 pound per year of muscle that you're losing. So what? I don't care if I'm losing muscle. Well, you do if 1 pound of muscle burns 5 to 7 calories a day. And if you lose that 1 pound of muscle and you do not change your eating habits, you eat the same, you're eating healthy, you don't change your exercise habits, you're still exercising, you still gain 1 pound in a year because you've lost that pound of muscle. That 5 to 7 calories that pound of muscle used to use every day. So what's the goal? The goal is to put the muscle back in the body. How do I do that? I do it with strength training. Strength training is a type of exercise where you use resistance to challenge the muscle. You affect it so much that that muscle has to respond. What was that you just did to me? And the muscle will respond by building itself up stronger and repairing itself up so it's even stronger than before. Basically building more muscle to be ready for you the next time you do that. So for example, this is really basic, but let's say the first time you have to shovel snow, okay? Resistance can come in the form of your own body weight, like when you do push-ups. It can come in the form of like a strength training machine. It can come in the form of dumbbells, maybe resistance bands. It can come in the form of snow. So the first time you go out and shovel, you're moving that resistance, and the next day you notice, wow, my back, my shoulders, oh my gosh, my legs, they're sore. What's going on here? Oh yeah, I shoveled snow yesterday. You strength trained. You basically pushed that extra stuff out of the way. You hadn't done it in a long time. The muscle was like, what are you doing? I didn't know you wanted me to do this. The muscle, you were sore because you had broken muscle down. It takes 48 hours. In that 48-hour period of time, your muscle rebuilds itself, repairs itself, makes itself stronger, so that it's going to be ready for you the next time you do that. That's why the second and third and fourth time you shovel, it's not as bad. You don't have that soreness anymore, okay? You need to do that type of resistance training in order to build that muscle. So the recommendations are that you strength train 2 to 3 times a week, that you do 8 to 10 exercises. So you don't just want to randomly pick exercises. You need to strength train the entire body for the safety and health of your body. So we want to strength train your chest muscles and your back and your arms and your abdominals and lower back and legs and the back of the legs and your calves. There's all these exercises you want to do, about 8 to 10 exercises. For each exercise you do, for each muscle you're training, you want to do 2 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions. If you can do more than 12 repetitions easily, and I usually use the repetition of 15, I tell my clients, if you can easily do 15, increase the weight. You've got to make it harder, or you're not going to increase muscle anymore. And if you're over 30 years old, if you're not increasing muscle, you're losing muscle. So even if you're currently strength training, if you're not increasing muscle with your strength training, because you're just kind of, I've been at 10 pounds for the last 8 weeks, if you're not increasing muscle, you're losing muscle, okay? So you need to bump that up if you're already strength training. If you are not currently strength training, guess what happens when you strength train for everybody? That body, as I said before, you're breaking muscle down when you're strength training. You have to repair that muscle. Well, nobody repairs anything for free. Your body doesn't repair things for free. It has to use calories. It has to use energy. It has to create energy to repair muscle. So on average, you're burning or you're using about an extra 100 calories a day for the next 3 days after you strength train. That's how high it's increasing your resting metabolism. So if you strength train just 2 times a week, you're burning actually about an average of 600 more calories a week just by strength training 2 times in a week. That's it. It takes like 30 minutes to strength train all the muscles that you need. If I was going to burn 600 calories in an hour, I can't even do that with most cardio that I do. I could probably do that running. That's something you can do with strength training. Okay? So it's really important that we start. It doesn't matter if you're 90 years old. I'm sure Dr. Brady will say he would recommend anybody of any age to start strength training. The next tip is cardiovascular exercise. Now, the current recommendations, cardiovascular exercise is like walking, biking, swimming, that type of thing. The current recommendations by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, are that we exercise most days of the week, about 150 to 300 minutes a week at a moderate intensity. A moderate intensity equals brisk walking, riding flat with your cycle, like a bicycle, just riding on a flat ground, doubles tennis, mowing the lawn, and not the riding mower. I'm actually pushing the lawnmower, mowing the lawn. That's moderate activity. Or the CDC recommends 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous exercise. Vigorous exercise is jogging, running, riding that bicycle really fast or up hills. Singles tennis is another aspect of vigorous exercise. Basically, your breathing effort is somewhat hard to hard. Okay? Now, that's the recommendation. If you want to increase your metabolism, you want to exercise at an intensity that's greater than 70% of the maximum you can go, or at a vigorous pace. Okay? So if you want to increase your metabolism, exercise at a vigorous intensity. There were 2 studies I'm going to cite here. One study showed athletes that exercised at a vigorous rate. For the next 9 hours, their metabolism was 12% higher than what it had been the day before when they did not exercise at a vigorous rate. Basically, their body was repairing itself, healing itself. Another study showed skiers. They had a very vigorous, intense exercise bout. For 39 hours after that intense exercise bout, their resting metabolisms increased by 16%. They were burning more calories after that intense workout because they were repairing their bodies. Okay? So, if you are currently exercising and you're currently brisk walking, this is my recommendation. Not that you start jogging for 30 minutes, but that maybe you start building in intervals of vigorous exercise into your current routine. So that might mean you turn that treadmill incline up to a 12% grade. Don't change the speed. You're walking still the same speed, but you're going to be pumping those arms trying to get up that hill. Do it for a minute or 2 minutes at that vigorous pace. Then let yourself come down to flat, to the moderate pace again. Let yourself kind of get ready to do the vigorous pace again. So maybe you recover for a minute or 2 minutes, and then you go back up to the vigorous pace. If you want to decide you want to start jogging, you start with walking. Walk for 3 minutes, and then jog for 30 seconds. Walk for 3 minutes again, jog for 30 seconds. Eventually, with your vigorous intensity, you'll be able to do longer bouts of vigorous intensity and shorter bouts of moderate intensity until you get to a point where the whole 30 minutes you can do vigorous intensity. Okay, the whole 45 or whatever it is you're going for. You can do it on elliptical trainers. You can do it swimming. It's just a matter of breathing at that somewhat hard to hard pace, okay? Now, that recommendation might not be for everybody. Not everybody can go vigorous intensity, okay? But if you're not currently exercising, I would recommend start at moderate, and then eventually, maybe down the road, you could try to do some vigorous intensity. This is just if you're trying to increase that metabolic rate. This leads me to my third suggestion. Eating after you exercise. Those two studies I mentioned before about how those athletes, their resting metabolic rates increased after their intense exercise. It happened in every athlete except for the athletes who did not replace the calories that they used in their workouts with food. So this means eat after you exercise. Your body needs to repair itself. It needs the tool to repair itself. Protein, like Terry talked about, is a huge tool to repair your body, as is those healthy carbohydrates that are full of the vitamins and minerals that your body needs. And so the recommendation, if you did vigorous exercise, the recommendation is within 30 minutes after you exercise to get something in a combination of 4-to-1 carbohydrate to protein. Now that would be like a yogurt, okay? A yogurt has protein in it, but it also has more carbohydrate in it than protein. Or a banana and a yogurt. Or within 2 hours, you're going to eat that same combination of foods again, like a turkey sandwich, a tuna sandwich. You've got the good whole grain bread. You've got the good protein in the middle, more carbohydrate than protein. That is so that your muscle repairs or replenishes its glycogen system. Glycogen is the energy that your muscle has stored. So that the next day when you go exercise, you're not going to have those lows or those crashes. Your muscles are going to be full of energy to go work out again, okay? Now, eating within 30 minutes and 2 hours doesn't necessarily increase your metabolism, but if you know you got to eat after a vigorous workout anyway to increase your metabolism, you might as well follow those guidelines and what kinds of foods they're suggesting you eat. So having the Pepsi and the bag of Doritos after you work out, not the recommendation for that. So that's my third suggestion. So eating, replacing those calories after you have exercised. Now, if you exercise in the morning, that means eating breakfast. If you exercise during your lunch hour, that means after you go back to work, you're doing maybe some sort of combination of the yogurt and banana. You're still eating lunch. If you exercise before dinner, you're going home and eating dinner. It doesn't mean you have to add an extra meal to your day. It just means you're planning how you eat that meal, how you're eating those meals. All right, so now we're going to get to, before I go on to the next category, being safe. Before you begin any exercise program, if you are over the age of 50, it's a good idea for you to talk to your doctor before you say, hey, I'm going to start a running program. Maybe you should get some advice about that, especially if you're on any medications that control blood pressure, cholesterol. You never know what might be lurking underneath our bodies. I know I'm 38, and every year since the age I was 29, something different has happened to me every year. So something changes, you're not really sure of it, get doctor's advice first. If you start a strength training program, you've not been strength training, and you decide you're going to start, seek professional advice, okay? Because you can easily get hurt. If you're following those videos at home, you don't know if you're doing it right. Nobody's telling you if you're doing it right. At Mercy Fitness Center right now, we're running a 2-week free trial. You can come out for 2 weeks for free and try the fitness center. Use the strength training machines. Go to the classes that we have. There's instructors leading those. If you decide you want to join, we'll do 3 personal training sessions for free with you so that we can teach you how to set up a proper exercise program. Okay? But get some sort of professional advice before you just start to do it on your own. And then, as I mentioned before, increase gradually. Okay? Don't start to do the hardest thing I just mentioned now. Slowly ease up into it so you're not so sore. All right. So now we're going to get to the 2 tests, or the 1 test we looked at. I'm going to actually talk about the resting metabolic rate test that we offer at Mercy Fitness Center and also the exercise ones, because they can really help when you're trying to figure out, well, how do I eat and what do I consume? So we just did this resting metabolic rate test on Riley to determine how many calories she needs in a day if she was just going to sit in a chair and do nothing. And so before, as I mentioned before, exercise affects your resting metabolism. So before somebody does this test, they cannot do vigorous exercise for 24 hours because it'll be affected by it. We know that eating, because the process of digestion uses calories, more calories than if you were just at rest. So they also should not eat for 12 hours before they do this test. And then you definitely don't want to be asleep. You want to be awake doing it. And you also don't want to try to move. And you also don't want to think. Because your brain actually uses a lot of carbohydrate for fuel. Yeah, so, you know, it's the one time you just sit there and zone out, stare at a blank wall. That's why I had Riley turn in the other direction. So normally we do this in the morning with people. It calculates how many calories that your body, you should be eating every day just to support your regular body needs. So the resting metabolic rate basically says if you sat in a chair and did nothing, you still need food, you still need sustenance. You still have kidneys that are trying to function, your brain is still active, your liver and your heart is still pumping. All that requires energy. And so this tells you, at minimum, this is a suggestion for how many calories that your body needs. Okay? There are equations that can estimate this. Equations we find that can sometimes be off by 500 calories, plus or minus. This is actually specific for you, measuring how you are breathing in and out and figuring out for you what you should be at. There's been studies that have shown that if you chronically eat too few calories, that your resting metabolism actually slows down. Basically, your body's trying to conserve energy. Apparently, there's not enough food in the world because you're not eating as much anymore, so your body's going to try to slow down how many calories it's using to conserve itself. Well, that's not any good, guys, because that means you can't eat as much. So that's what we're going for. We want to keep our bodies at a healthy level. And then depending on your lifestyle and how much exercise you do, your total calorie needs for the day are going to be different based on that. So for Riley, what we found out is that her resting metabolic rate is 1,400 calories. So for every day, Riley wants to make sure she's consuming at least 1,400 calories because she needs to make sure her body's functioning appropriately. All right? When we look at what Riley's lifestyle does, Riley has a job, she has a job just like me. We stand and we tell other people what to do with workouts. So we're telling you what to do. We demonstrate it first, and then we let you do it. And then we're walking around, and we teach classes, and we're moving a little bit, but we stand a lot. We call ourselves, we have what's called a light activity, or a light lifestyle is what we call our work job. In the course of the day, all that activity that Riley's doing, it requires her to use about 560 more calories during the day so that she can perform all that activity. So for the day, she needs 1,960 calories. Okay? That's in order to support and maintain her current body weight. All right? Now, if Riley doesn't want to maintain her current body weight, and she would like to lose body weight, which Riley does not need to lose body weight, we're not going to make her feel self-conscious over here, but if she would like to, she needs to cut some calories out of our diet. That's that way in and out thing that we were talking about before. So we're going to reduce how many calories that we consume. I should note before this, though, if Riley eats more than 1,960 calories in a day, she will gain weight. Okay? This is important to know. Because if you know how many calories you're eating in a day, and you know how many calories you need in a day, you're not going to be surprised if you gain a half a pound or a pound at the end of the week. That's what's going to happen. You ate more than what you needed. Okay? But if she wants to lose, she's going to cut out some of these calories. We're going to cut out 500 calories. We can cut out as much as 500 or 560 calories a day from her diet. And that's based on her lifestyle activity and us never wanting her to go less than 1,400 calories a day. I'm not going to tell Riley she has to eat 1,200 calories a day and exercise 400 calories off. That would only mean she's eating 800 calories a day, if you did the math. And her body needs 1,400 calories if she was just sitting in a chair doing nothing all day long. We don't want to suppress her metabolism. We want to make her running at a healthy, optimal rate. So we're going to have her cut out about 500 calories a day through either exercise or eating less. That she just has to add that up, okay? As Dr. Brady mentioned, 3,500 calories, you have to expend 3,500 stored calories in order to lose a pound. And so if she did that every day of the week, that equals 3,500 calories, and so she'll lose a pound a week. Okay? She can't lose 2 pounds a week because she only has 560 calories to play with every day. I can't tell her to cut out 1,000 calories in a day because that would only leave her with 900 calories she's eating. Now, why is this important? Because you won't be disappointed. You'll know I can only lose a pound a week. You won't think that you're going to try to lose 5 pounds a week because that's not what your body can do. Safely and effectively and efficiently, to have you do it for a continual period of time and not have the highs and lows of, I dropped 30 pounds in a month and then I gain it back. You're not going to drop 30 pounds in a month doing it this way, but you might drop 30 pounds in a year and you'll keep it off because this is how your metabolism is actually running. So there's also an exercise test, and the exercise metabolic test, same kind of thing. You're wearing the mask while you're exercising. And what that does is it looks at what kind of calories you're using when you exercise. Are you using more carbohydrate to exercise? Are you using more fat? What kind of combination are you doing? And then what the test does is it creates a 12-week exercise program for you so that your body can use more fat efficiently for fuel. So if I can exercise longer, harder, I'm going to burn more calories. But if I'm not in shape, I'm going to burn out too quickly. I want to try to use more fat for fuel because I'm going to be able to go longer, harder. When I use carbohydrate for fuel, I'm going to have to stop a little sooner. I used to call it the Lance Armstrong effect. But I don't know that that's really the effect anymore. You know, he could go really hard for really long, but could be EPO that caused that. So, but this is a different idea. All right, so I'm wrapping it up here, and now we're going to take some questions.
All right, thank you, Daisy. So as they're getting set up over here at the panel, I've got just a few pieces of information that I want to share with you about the program that is hosting this tonight. So if any of you have been to a Steps to Health seminar before, you know kind of what this program is about. It is a program brought to you by Mercy Medical Center, and they provide monthly health seminars on lots of different health-related topics, like this one. You can find their information in the Gazette. They do send out monthly mailers like this. You can get signed up to receive those. And if you would like, the coordinator of the program, she's the one in the purple, she's waving, there you go, you can talk with Lynn. She can get you more information as well. Another feature of the Steps to Health program is the activity logs and the walking program that goes along with it. So this is an example of the activity log, and anybody who is registered with the program and tracks their steps can send those in to Mercy. All of those kind of go into a pot. There's a monthly winner and for a $25 gift certificate from a variety of locations. This month's was from the Mercy Fitness Center, and it can be used for a membership, classes, products. The winner for that this month was Sister Lucy Frine, excuse me. And if you're not familiar with Steps to Health, you want to learn more about it, you can talk to Lynn. There's more information in the back, and then you can go online and read more about it as well. All right, so we've got our panel of experts, and it looks like we've got a lot of questions coming in.
Butter versus margarine, which is best?
Well, is it on? Can you hear me okay? Well, I'll tell you, I like butter because butter is made with cream and a little bit of salt, and there's not a lot of other things added to it. But margarine is fine. You can get some decent margarines, but again, you want to just read the labels and look for the trans fats. Those are the ones that you want to avoid. You can get the lower fat margarines where you can get 50 calories for a tablespoon, and so that might be good if you like to put a lot of butter on your toast. But I think it's a personal choice. With the butter that I use very little, so a teaspoon is my serving. So I think it's just a personal choice, but again, just look for those trans fats.
There's another one here. Which brand of peanut butter to eat? I know you talked about no trans fats. I choose Skippy, the natural Skippy, which has no trans fats in it. So trying to choose one that has no trans fats in the ingredients.
Yeah, there's another one here is trans fats in just plain peanuts. No. But it can be in some of the Jif and some of the other peanut butters that are more processed. There's a natural out there. If you go to some of the health food sections, you can find peanut butters that are just peanuts and salt. You can go down to the co-op in Iowa City. You can grind your own peanuts.
I definitely want to answer here. Raspberry ketones. Somebody just says news about it boosting metabolism. Keep in mind, probably the most important theme, I would have named the talk this if they would have let me, is Dr. Oz is evil. Do not listen to that man. He has to have a show. He has to have something every day, right? No, Dr. Oz is awesome in some ways, but he's a sensationalist. I mean, he's a salesman, and actually the New Yorker has a large article about him this week that's kind of interesting. There's definitely no magic foods. What there are is there's good food, and then there's junk. I'm going to do another one real quick. Some women gain a lot of belly fat after menopause. All of my sisters now look like my aunts used to, and they're all asking me, which is they look like my dad, and as far as the shape goes. And Luckily, they're not here. Which is, it's really normal when you go through menopause. The reason is because the female shape of where you keep weight around hips and bust is determined by estrogen. And after you no longer have estrogen, you gain weight the way we do, which is the normal. So it's actually sort of the normal metabolic process is to put it on the belly, but estrogen is protective for a long, long time, which we weight loss doctors sort of long for the days when all the women were on hormones. So you could kind of use that as an excuse to get them thin again. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. There's some other factors that change, but probably the main thing is that it's the protective effect of estrogen. It's why some people, when they lose weight too, will never ever lose their hips, because the estrogen put it there on purpose. That's kind of a metabolic adaptation. It's supposed to be the way that it is. So.
Stacy, I've got a quick question. Can I just ask this really quick? Where can I get my RMR calculated? Can you just share where the metabolic test is done?
I got a couple here. At Mercy Fitness Center, and we are located in the Mercy Health Plaza, which is on Council Street by the Galaxy Movie Theater, in that same building as Mercy Care North. Somebody else asked, can you drink whey protein within 30 minutes after you exercise? And yes, you can. However, this is how it works. If you drink or eat just protein after exercise, you will restore or replenish about 4 millimoles of muscle glycogen for the next day's workout. If you eat just carbohydrate, it's about 100 millimoles. If you eat carbohydrate and protein in that 4-to-1 ratio I talked about, 4 times more carbohydrate to 1 gram of protein, you get about 120 millimoles. So just protein alone after you work out is the worst thing you can do if you're trying to get ready for the next day's workout. But protein is really important after you work out. You just want to have more carbohydrate than protein after the workout.
All right, I've got a couple here. One is, are sugar-free packets for water good, such as Crystal Light? And what is the difference between flavored water and regular bottled water? You know, having these sugar-free packets to add to your water or flavored waters, they're not a bad thing. They aren't. I think we rely on them way too much. If you're just having one, or if you like to have it for something a little bit different, that's fine. But I really do encourage just plain water for the hydration. And regular bottled water, I don't know, I hear a lot of different stories about that, where basically some of these companies are just taking it out of the regular tap water. I know people will drink regular bottled water because they don't like the city water from the tap, so they prefer that. I don't really have a problem with the Cedar Rapids water, so I prefer to get it just right out of the tap. So really, there's not a big difference between the you know, that regular bottled water and regular tap water. There's not that big of a difference.
I have an opinion on this one, and you can chime in if you want. But the question is, fruit juices, are they worth the calories? No, they're not worth the calories. When it comes to the chart that we talk about with the fructose and all that, the idea is that carbohydrates aren't bad, and even fructose isn't bad. The problem is when it's a very easy supply of energy that we can't do much with. Fructose itself, there's no problem with it at all as long as it comes from the fruit. You know, there's a guy out there named Robert Lustig who is a super smart guy, but he's way off on this, and he's going across the country. In fact, he helps the government with their recommendations to us, so it bothers me. But he's got this great science, and it just doesn't match his recommendations at all when he gets outside of his field, and he thinks that fructose is the cause of the obesity epidemic. And he's distracting a lot of people with it. But he has one phrase that makes sense, and he says fructose is poison. It's just in fruit there's an antidote. And the antidote is the fiber that makes us absorb it slowly so we don't have a huge insulin spike and we don't get these ups and downs. Fruit is obviously really good for us, and even the fructose that's found in fruit, it's nowhere near the quantity that you'd get in a Coke. So that's kind of the warping of the food that's been the problem. I think the only other, one more thing on carbs, but I want to say real quickly, I am generally kind of a low-carb, higher protein guy, not no carbs, because carbs aren't evil, but the idea, it would be the same, it's the same as it is with the fructose, which is there are definitely good carbs and bad carbs, so if you're eating it, You have to recognize that it's in all of your fruits and vegetables, and there's no problem with it there. And then with your grains, the whole grains does the same thing. Adding the fiber makes these, kind of higher energy, wasteful foods be utilized better. So that's the idea behind that. Somebody else asked how many carbs should a person have a day. Each of these things has to be customized, and one of the ideas of trying to bring up this concept of everybody having a unique metabolism is so that you recognize you burn a certain amount, and you will be able to do more in different ways depending upon how you eat. Every single person in here kind of has their own recipe, so having an estimate of the resting metabolic rate is a good way to do that. Real quickly, if there's a shorthand way to do it, if it was going to be about 50% of your calories, and your metabolism, your number of calories you need tends to be about your weight times 10. So your resting metabolic rate, if you're 140 pounds, is going to be 1,400, which we could have done without the machine. But that's not true for everybody, right? Well, I'm not going to say. So there's a little bit extra because she's active. But if you take your weight times 10, that's not a bad place to start for what you want to diet. And carbs can be about half of that. Some of the V8 juices are awesome, and some of them are junk. Do you know which is which? So you got to read the label. Oh, last thing I want to say on the labels when you're looking at it to find the hydrogenated and all that. If you have to read for that long, you just get something else. Get something with no labels. Get something that looks like something your grandmother would have eaten.
Are you talking about the V8, the tomato V8 juice, or the fruit ones? The tomatoes? They're okay. A serving, again, is a half a cup. Eating a regular tomato would probably be better. But they're only about 30 calories for a half a cup, so they're not that bad. If you have problems with hypertension or you have heart disease, you want to look for the lower sodium. And that would be my recommendation. And again, it's just, trying to eat the whole foods more often and the juices, once in a while.
One of the questions here is yoga considered strength training? And I would say that depends. If you get soreness in the muscles from doing your yoga once in a while, then I would say yes. You just broke down some muscle and you're repairing muscle. If you don't, then I would say no. So you need to challenge the muscle. So if the muscle is challenged and once in a while you get a little soreness, that's a good sign. And also, if you're maintaining your weight and you're doing yoga, then I would say it's good. If you're not maintaining your weight and you're doing yoga, then you might want to change what you're currently doing. All right?
Dr. Brady, we've got a couple questions here on hypothyroidism. Can you address that?
I'm against it.
Metabolism?
The problem, hypothyroidism is tricky. It's kind of like that polycystic ovarian thing where we don't know which is the cause and which is the effect. And diabetes, by the same token, it's kind of hard to know why those things seem to go with weight. We do know that there's a lot more hypothyroid, which means low thyroid, now than there ever was before at the same time as the obesity epidemic. So, there's crackpots out there who would say, oh, well, there's some poison that's hitting our thyroids and now we don't have any metabolism and that's why we're all, I don't think there's much to that. I think the two are risk factors for each other. So hypothyroidism should be diagnosed by a doctor. There's lab tests, and it should be treated. Most people who are, I wouldn't say most, but many people that I've treated with hypothyroidism never feel like they get enough of that thyroid hormone. They go to their doctor and they say, but I'm sluggish again. And he checks the test and he says, you're fine and you don't feel fine. That seems to be a really common scenario. So my guess is it's never going to be perfectly regulated. Whenever we put a hormone in through a pill or a shot, it doesn't have the daily fluctuations and all the feedback and all that wonderful stuff like I was showing you guys with the gut hormones. Everything in the body works in such a concerted fashion that it's pretty hard to just take your thyroid hormone and feel perfect. I will say there's a long tradition in my profession of weight loss doctors of people putting people on thyroid hormone specifically for their weight. That goes in and out of fashion, and it's a dumb idea. Real quick, I'll try aspartame, and then if you have an opinion too. The amounts of aspartame that you'd have to eat for it to actually be bad for you, like causing cancer, is 100 times more than you're ever probably going to have. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say that it's bad for you per se. It's a sign that you're probably having junk food again, you know, so that's another thing to look at. It's probably better than having full-strength Coke or whatever the alternative would be. Do you have a thought about that? But I don't think it's a poison any more than, you know, there's a little conspiracy about that. It's like you hear with MSG or something. I don't think aspartame does anything in the body. You can get rats addicted to it, and that seems odd, but.
All right, here's another one. It currently, if I currently walk four times a week for about an hour, how much would it help me if I added an additional hour or an additional 2 hours? So basically, if you walked an hour every day, as opposed to just walking an hour 4 times a week. Well, that's actually the guidelines from the CDC. So you, in an hour period of time, you might burn an extra 400 calories each of those days. What I have to tell you is what we see with the fitness center is when a lot of people, and this happens with women all the time, you want to lose weight, so you're going to eat less and you're going to exercise more. And that's the problem with that resting metabolism rate that we looked at. Your resting metabolic rate is 1,200 calories. So you're going to eat 1,100 calories and you're going to go exercise 300 calories that day. Again, you're only giving your body about 900 calories or 800 calories. So that's not a good thing. So you can be exercising more, that's fine, but make sure you're giving your body the right amount of sustenance that you need to maintain normal organ function too at the same time. So if you're eating what you should be and you go and exercise an hour more, that's probably going to contribute to some extra weight loss.
Question here that says, if you eat breakfast and it makes you tired, what do you do? First, I would find out what are you eating for breakfast. If you're eating something, a large breakfast, maybe a high-fat breakfast, that could make you a little bit tired. You might want to focus a little bit more on some carbohydrate, maybe a yogurt, maybe something a little bit lighter, maybe something with some fruit that might give you a little bit more of that pick-me-up energy. So I guess I would just have to find out what you're eating and go from there.
I want to add just a touch or a way of thinking about Dacey's comments of not going underneath your basal metabolic rate. Because we know people will lose weight if they starve, but this has been pretty systematically shown that the lower you go, the more those hormones will react. So a starvation diet will really provoke all those counter-regulatory hormones and the things they do to your metabolism. So the way I think of it is the tendency to weight gain is like this monster inside of us, and you want to not tick it off if you can. You want to just do a little, but don't get this thing fighting against you, because that rebound thing is inevitable, probably, if you do.
Did you guys finally run out of questions?
No, we haven't.
Oh,
We started making them up.
All right, I've got a question here.
Dr. Brady, how do you get your hair like that?
Right, exactly. I've got a question here on energy. So somebody is saying, I'm exhausted all the time. My blood work's been good, though. I'm not sure I have the energy to work out. Will exercise help? Can somebody address that?
Yes, yes. Now, what I'd want to look to is and to see, you know, if you're consuming enough calories in your diet, if you are consuming the right types of calories in your diet, you've got good protein, good healthy carbohydrates, you've got the right kinds of fats, so you're not drinking all the tons of soda and eating the foods that aren't so great for us that we know aren't great for us. Because all those vitamins and minerals are needed in order to unlock the stores of energy you have in your body, so we've got to have the good foods. But yes, exercise, the way I always tell people is if you don't move, your body learns not to want to move. It just gets sluggish. If you're tight, your body's kind of, and you stretch it out, your body's like, hey, I'm woken up. Let me go get some activity going on here. So if you move and you just, even if it's 10 minutes, you might find that extra oxygen, you breathe more in, that oxygen is going to wake you up a little bit more, give you a little bit more energy. So yeah, give it a try. Just don't start by doing 60. Start with a little bit of something.
Here's another one. What methods, techniques have you found to be most effective in helping people lose and maintain weight? Maybe we can answer this together. But a lot of times what I like to do is have people like just kind of identify what some of their habits are. Maybe what are some of the problem areas, and then start from there. Some people like to snack all night long, and they just, comes 8 o'clock at night, I just can't stop eating, and they might just continue to eat and eat. So what I might recommend is, well, why don't we try something else to snack on? Since that's your eating time, maybe have an apple with some caramel sauce if you like something sweet. or have some air pop popcorn and try different habits, or take a look at different things that you can change in your diet so that you're eating less calories. Of course, exercise. We can always add in exercise there. Another thing that Dr. Brady and I, when I'm working with him, he really likes to have a higher protein, not necessarily a low carb, but a higher protein diet. And so we've been really encouraging people to take a look at their protein and getting some leaner proteins and getting more protein in their diet, because that really does help you to stay fuller longer, and then you don't have those urges to always want to eat.
I would say the keys that I see is most people do eat the people who are successful eat breakfast and they know what they eat. That seems to be the defining factor is actually writing down your food so you know what you're getting. Because you can't follow any of these recommendations if you actually don't know what you're eating. And if you're not writing it down, believe me, you don't know what you're eating. It's really surprising when you start. So, and the last thing, there's no other, last thing for me, you guys can stay. There's no other doctors in the room, right? Because I'm going to say something irresponsible. I totally disagree with Dacey's thing that you got to check with your doctor before you exercise. I think you need to check with your doctor if you don't exercise. That would be my recommendation. If you're going to just go exercise. We don't care. You're fine. Nobody's going to have a heart attack starting now. I give you, in fact, you all checked with me. I give you permission.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. We're out of time for questions. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question, and then thank you to our panel of experts.